Good morning. My name is Dr. Petrikovsky. I'm a professor of obstetrics and gynecology, and the ideas expressed in this video does not necessarily agree with the opinion of the institution I'm affiliated with. What we're going to talk today is immunity to coronavirus, and that's the most confusing news that came out of the recent CDC report. If you recall, the whole idea of coronavirus, every press conference, they were talking about testing. And they were actually making comparison how North Korea, South Korea compared to Burundi or Mozambique, United States, Europe, etc., etc. But once we know more and more, we understand that testing is definitely not the solution, but sometimes is a problem by itself. And what I would like to very briefly tell you is the story of the immunity. Very often, patients definitely have symptoms of coronavirus, tested positive by the nasal test, and then claims that there is no immunity because there is no antibodies. One thing you need to understand is that the test for antibodies have certain sensitivity and allows to detect antibodies when they reach certain levels. So the fact that test is negative does not mean in any way, shape, or form that the person does not have the antibodies. Actually, from our experience with other viruses, we're very comfortable with how antibodies usually show up. Those are immunoglobulins or special proteins of two types, so-called immunoglobulin M and immunoglobulin G, and M comes first, followed by the G. And certain viruses like rubella virus have a very strong immunity. Poliovirus has a very strong immunity. Certain viruses like rabies, with time, the immunity goes down and it requires another vaccination or another shot. When it comes to COVID-19, it's extremely confusing because IgM and IgG very often appear simultaneously. A lot of people don't develop antibody in the level that we can detect by the lab. So we consider them negative, yet they definitely most likely have some protection. So it's very, very important to understand that testing, unfortunately, is not a solution to the problem. And definitely the current knowledge is very clear that although we do test, we should test, but we should understand the meaning of the test, that the presence of the antibodies, of the absence of the antibodies is not 100% significant. And therefore, the CDC, in the recent recommendation, said that we should not use antibody test as a permit to go to work, as a permit to congregate, because we thought we're going to put together antibody-positive people and they will never infect each other. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Sometimes people simultaneously are antibody-positive and still shed the virus. So that's the confusing part. But let me tell you the good news. And the good news is that, in my opinion, and what we see around, that the virus is getting weaker, is losing its power. As a matter of fact, the first pandemic, or one of the known pandemic in 1917, 16, 14, so-called Spanish flu, died out without any vaccination, without any call for social distancing, and therefore I think that we see decrease of the power of the virus. I always compare it like to the tropical storm, that as it goes, it slowly loses its power. And I think one of the best examples for us to see, definitely from the scientific standpoint, is the recent riots when the thugs raped our country, actually destroyed a lot of property. never really wear masks or kept social distances. Let's see what's going to be with the COVID-19 and those thugs. I wish them well. Stay safe.